A very good evening to all our viewers on Facebook Live today. I welcome everyone. I'm Uzma Amir and I'm your moderator for this evening. This session is hosted by Visamo Kids Foundation of the Kalorex Group. Visamo has been tirelessly making efforts since the past 2 decades to uplift talented children who lack opportunities of education but bloom when they are given this tremendous chance and exposure in Visamo. Visamo has been hosting a series of Facebook Live sessions since June, and they just wrapped up their 100th episode last week. Till now, mainly people who've been associated and involved with Visamo, including teachers, students, donors, volunteers, and parents, were participants. But today's session is different, where panelists from different fields from across the world are joining us. It is an attempt to answer questions and bust some myths too about stereotyping within intersecting identities and what effect they have on the minds and lives of people. To what extent is our identity influenced by our family and community? How do stereotypes and prejudices affect who we think we are? How can stereotypes affect our sense of pride, security, and independence? And what are our experiences? Growing up, much of our identity is formed by our parents, grandparents, and our whole community. It is formed by the things we are taught in school, the attitudes and behaviors directed towards us by others, and representations we see or don't see of ourselves in the media and mainstream society. So, to start this interesting discussion, let me introduce today the illustrious array of our panel members now. So we have with us Ms. Navnita Bhattacharya live from Melbourne, Australia. She is a senior advisor for equality, diversity and inclusion in the telecommunications industry ombudsman. We have Mr. Karthik Gore, presently based in Rajkot. He is the program officer for Saksham Pravag, Gujarat, and works for the Tata Institute for Social Sciences, Mumbai. Ms. Vasudha Arora, a mental health professional and change facilitator from Mumbai, and Major A.S. Ravi Kiran, joining us from Seattle. He's the engagement manager, Tech Mahindra Americas. I will be telling you more about our panelists when they come up for their talk. I welcome all the panelists to this webinar, which is being streamed live on the Visamo Kids Foundation's Facebook page. So first, I'd like to invite Navnita, who is an unapologetic feminist by her own admission. She has been working in the social justice domain for more than 20 years. She currently is with the telecommunications industry ombudsman, as I mentioned, and she works towards equality, diversity, and inclusion, and to create a workplace culture that welcomes everybody to do the best work of their lives. She will be talking about cultural stereotypes around mental health and how her experience of working in different countries has defined what she says, and does. So welcome, Navnita.
Thank you, Uzma. India, the country of my birth and where I grew up, is currently home to a population of close to more than 1 billion people. And as I was preparing for this panel discussion, I was reading up data from India and from the countries where I worked in. A 2017 World Health Organization study shows that about 5 crore Indians suffered from depression. 2017, 5 crore Indians suffered from depression, and over 3 crores suffered from anxiety disorders. Data, 2016 data from the National Crime Records Bureau show that mental illness is the most significant reason for student suicide in India. And it just blew the socks out of me, just trying to understand and unpack the numbers in my head. So the 2016 NCRB report says that it is 1 student every hour who is either dying by suicide or is attempting suicide. And the numbers are just mind-boggling. In Australia, the country I have adopted and where I now live, mental illness is very common. 1 in 5, that's about close to 20% of Australians aged about 16 to 85 experience a mental illness in any year. And the most common mental illnesses are depression, anxiety, and substance use disorder. And substance use related to not just drugs, but alcohol as well. As I navigate between cultures, contexts, and countries, I continue to see many similarities. And yes, some significant differences too. But I'll be focusing in the next 5 minutes about the similarities just to show how common it is. The scourge of stereotyping, the way we humans stigmatize and label other human beings, it is so common and it transcends cultures and contexts. It doesn't matter who you are and where you are, it's just so common. In many countries in Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, where I have lived and worked, mental illnesses are commonly misunderstood, very, very commonly misunderstood. In too many places, they are associated with supernatural activities or paranormal phenomena. And this is something which we see also in our films, even now. I mean, 2020, and some of the films that we see would die in ye kar diya or wo kar diya, you know, in Papua New Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, India, just to name a few of the countries where I've lived. People still continue to be denied proper treatment. People still continue to be rejected by their own family members, by their own communities. And their problems are continued to be misinterpreted as rage or jealousy or they are put in this box called usko to mood swings ho raha hai, wo to aise hi hai, you know, and all kinds of non-scientific methods are used to treat and cure. And we are very familiar with some of them, isn't it? Bhoot utarna, jadoo tona, or jhad phook. Black magic is used as treatment, and this is not just in the country where we are part of, but across. And some people with a mental illness are labeled as witches and dines and are murdered. And this is something which I have seen up front and very, very closely in Papua New Guinea, where I lived for 7 years. And it continues even today, where it's largely women. This form of gender-based violence is so common there. It's still happening in our villages, in our towns, in our cities, sometimes glorified by the so-called God men and God women. Again, something which we are very familiar with. And always or mostly ignored by law enforcement agencies. This is also, again, something which we see. And this is something I have seen in countries where generally law enforcement agencies are weak, where accountabilities are much more weaker. It's not common in countries such as Australia, where the proper systems and the structures are in place and where the level of stigma, it is there, but definitely much lower, and as a result of which the common person, like I am able to talk to Naisa, my 8-year-old, about issues like depression, something which I would have never been able to speak with Ma as I was growing up, or my Baba as I was growing up, you know. Talking to people in the work that I have been doing over the last 20 odd years, I have been amazed, or maybe not, to hear the perspective and the depth of stereotyping. The depth of stereotyping that still continues. And too many people, including the educated ones, you know, with all their sophisticated attire and supposed sophisticated intellectual thinking, even the educated ones. And this is something which really shook me out. Believe that mental illness is contagious. And I have heard it so often that, you know, those getting treated for, say, schizophrenia should be kept apart. उनको asylum में डाल दो क्योंकि छुआछूत हो जाएगी कि सबको लग जाएगा या किसी को हो जाएगा. This notion of it being a contagious disease, it still kind of persists. I mean, clearly, there's a significant lack of understanding on mental illness, not just in India, but in other places too. And I'm sure when we do a deep dive, and I'm glad that we have with us Karthik and Vasudha and Ravi, who will take us through the different domains. When we do a deep dive of the other overlapping factors, other intersecting factors, we see that this lack of understanding and awareness, factors such as class, or caste for that matter, or sexuality, or even genders, like how certain notions, how the notion of masculinity comes with how a man should behave or not, or how they should not be talking about their feelings, and how a woman should be able to suck it up, achhi bahu ban ke jao, and you should not be, agar period ke time pain ho raha hai, to, all of this, it's just considered part and parcel of the picture which you are forced to follow because society has told you to kind of do that. And the other thing, which is something which I've seen across cultures, is the stereotype about how these issues are only rich people's problems, that they have the luxury, they can afford the luxury of indulging into an illness that affects their mind and behavior. And again, based on the work that I have been doing, I've seen how language that we use, the language, हम लोग जिस तरीके से describe करते हैं लोगों को who are going through a certain mental illness, the language we use to describe someone is so dehumanizing. And I have not been able to understand that why we humans are. I was telling before we went on live that in the morning I had this Mahabharat with my husband Shiv, and he was like saying, and I used some words, and he's like, you're going to talk about mental health. But this is something, and again, and I'm being honest with you here, it is so much part of our everyday nomenclature that you have to consciously take a step back and reflect. Oh my God, this is really something that I have done. Reflect on it, own that behavior and correct it, and kind of make sure you don't kind of do it. And I've realized that we humans stereotype and stigmatize other humans with mental illness without pausing to even consider, how they may feel or what that makes them do. We say, "Arey pagalo jaise baat mat kar" in our everyday conversation, and in the films, the words like psycho or mad, or depicting someone as abnormal or violent, these are stereotypes which are being perpetuated in the media, either through films or serials or whatever. That's something which I have seen even in the Nigerian film industry. It's the Hollywood, it's called. Even there, like in many of the African films that are coming out, these are just so common there. And again, on the issue of language, and Usman, this is my last minute, and I'll quickly focus on this. Taking on the issue of language, take suicide, for example. The whole term committed suicide, it is so full of judgment. It is not just laden with judgment, there is this whole notion of blame and shame. And, as I was framing what I was talking about, I remember that growing up in India, a friend's dad died by suicide. And that day, I remember it so starkly. Everyone around me were talking in hushed tones. The environment was so full of judgment and shame. And I still remember that day very, very clearly. In fact, the term committed suicide, it's not just awful, but it depicts as though somebody has committed a crime or somebody has committed a sin. And I learned it, and this was something I didn't know. In India, suicide has been decriminalized as recently as 2018. In Australia, it was decriminalized in the 1970s. But in India, it was decriminalized as recently as 2018. But even though the criminal associations with suicide might be gone, I think it's going to take us a long, long time to come out of this language, which still remains the same, unfortunately. Um, and the other thing which I have issue with, and I remember having this conversation many years ago, sitting in a small village in northern Ghana, which was bordering Burkina Faso under this huge Shea nut tree. And we talked about with a group of women how the concept of committing suicide, the phrase committing suicide, also ignores the fact that suicide is often the consequence of unaddressed illnesses. You know, it's unaddressed illness such as depression or some kind of a trauma which has been unacknowledged, let alone be treated, or some other mental health issue. And I remember chatting, and there was this magnificent elderly person who said that when we don't say he committed heart attack or she committed breast cancer, why do we say they committed suicide? You know, the way we are describing an illness of the mind versus an illness which is physical, which we can see.
Absolutely.
Language is powerful.
Such relevant points that you're raising here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Language is so powerful because the way we talk about something and someone is actually a matter of life and death, because it prevents them from seeking help when they need it, and it prevents someone from providing that help when they are asked or when help is sought. And that's the thing I want to end with, that mental illness should be as easy as talking about my thyroid problem or Mars low blood pressure problem, you know, but rarely do we talk about the struggles of our minds that we are going through. And I will end here by reiterating really that the way we talk, not just about mental health, but the ease with which we use these labels or thappa lagado, is something which I am glad this is happening, so that it starts to become normal. It's as normal as the four of us with Uzma sitting here and talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and really shocking statistics that you put out, and of course, so much food for thought. And I'm sure our viewers would be posting comments and maybe questions for you also later, which we'll definitely come back to and allow more such points to be discussed. Thank you, Navnita. And we start with quite a good note here, where we're saying that, okay, this is something that will trigger some kind of a change, hopefully. Now, now I'd like to ask Karthik to unmute himself. And as I mentioned, that he has been working in the social development sector since 14 years. He started work from grassroots levels as a peer educator in the targeted intervention project in NGOs to implement HIV prevention and care programs in settings with low level and concentrated HIV epidemics, and then moving to state and national level as well. He's passionate about working for the community at large, but also equally committed towards working for the LGBTQIA+ community. He is a founder member of a community-based organization called Forum Foundation that is working for welfare of the LGBTQIA+ population. He will be talking about stereotyping within this community and also about his current work. So welcome, Karthik, and please share whatever your thoughts are.
Thank you, Uzma. And initially, I will thank to Sudeshna for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences, because it's very rare to talk about sexuality in open, because there are very rare people who want to hear about sexuality, and to share on such a platform, such a larger platform, it's a really big opportunity for us as a community member. It's a really very big opportunity. So very much thank you for that. So today I'm going to discuss about my experiences as a LGBTQIA community member, uh, as I was told that I need to share my experiences along with what my community people experiences in context of stereotypes. Uh, when talking about stereotypes now, so in our community stereotypes happens and times because it's all surrounded by gender. And again, when we talk about gender, is a wide subject to discuss about. But in short, I can say gender is what socially constructed, not biological. So what socially constructed, it is very wide. It is in fact very tough to understand because to grasp it and to digest it is very difficult. So uh, while sharing myself about me, let me introduce myself. I'm Karthik Gores, told by Usma. I belong to LGBTQIA community. Uh, I come to know about myself very long after, but I'm starting since about myself since my childhood. So in childhood, I born as a boy, uh, but thing was that when my mother, my father, even all the people surrounded to me used to tell me that you need to behave like a boy, like a means what I can say कि जो आप बिहेव अभी कर रहे हो या कर रही हो वो आपके लिए नहीं है. This is not for you. You are not made for this. You need to behave like this. So stereotypes started from there only because I was not allowed to behave what I was liking, what I am feeling. I was tended to do what they are thinking for me, what society is thinking for me because I born as a boy. तो मुझे सीधा चलना है, मुझे सीना तान के चलना है, मुझे कमर नहीं हिलानी है. तो वो इतना इतना हद तक था कि माय मॉम यूज्ड टू टॉट मी कि नहीं, यू नीड टू वॉक लाइक दिस, यू नीड टू टॉक लाइक दिस. एंड actually it was embarrassing. Means my mother is telling me how boys need to behave. Being a female, she is telling me, she is acting enact me how to walk. So these all things scratch me a lot in a way कि मैं कुछ अलग हूँ. और वहीं से शुरुआत हुई वो स्टीरियोटाइप की कि हाँ मैं अलग हूँ क्योंकि मुझे बताया गया था बचपन से ही yes I am different. And that thought go along with my education also, in my schooling also. क्योंकि when I come to understand means when कि what I am as a human being, तो school के अंदर my classmates, my schoolmates, not only classmates but my whole schoolmates used to call me Madhuri because my favorite hero was Madhuri. So they used to call me देखो माधुरी आ गई. So मतलब मैं माधुरी की हूँ. She was and she is my favorite hero. But yes, I am not Madhuri. But they used to call me Madhuri Yadav. So वो bullying and that in fact that was not torture for me at that much because at some extent I was feeling good also. हाँ मुझे ये लोग वो बता रहे हैं जो मैं हूँ, जो मुझे अच्छा लगता है सुनने के लिए. लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं वो एक चिढ़ाना था, वो एक bullying थी, which was not okay as a person. तो वहां से वो शुरुआत हुआ and I started identifying myself very different and which impacted on my studies also. And so I started to talk about with my mother after a very long time that during this all tenure, मैंने मम्मी को बोला मम्मी I'm not feeling good in school because मुझे लोग वो नहीं मानते जो मैं हूँ, वो नहीं मानते जो आप मुझे दिखाना चाहते हो स्कूल के अंदर, वो मैं नहीं हूँ. They are thinking me very different. So I was very much confused and all that sharing I used to share on everyday basis with my mom. And during the tenure, my mom was also telling me, you need to go with your friends, you need to go with cheer up with your friends. But I never thought so because I was so much scaring कि अगर मैं वहाँ पे जाऊँ तो वो लोग मुझे क्या बोलेंगे? What will be the next act? What will be the next word for me? And this was happened like that. I never been to any school picnic, school tours because I was so much scared what will happen to me there because I was very much alone there मैं शाम को जाकर मेरी मम्मी को नहीं मिलने वाला। तो वो एक डर था जो मैंने कभी वहां पे मुझे पहुंचा ही नहीं सका जहां मुझे जाना चाहिए था। So my mom always asked me, और फिर दिन ऐसा है कि my mom thought so कि नहीं, there is something serious, she need to discuss with my father also, and she discussed with my father all these things. And that was the worst day when my mom discussed this with my father. My father act very shockingly. Very, he used to start beating me after that. He used to taunting me after that. He used to put watch on me by his friends, by my friends, where I'm going, with whom I'm talking, what type of behavior I do have with my friends. वो देखने के लिए कि really I'm into sex with someone. At that time, I was not aware about sex. I never heard about sex, but I was watched in a box of sex. कि मैं कहीं जाकर सेक्स कर रहा हूँ क्या? तो वो बहुत बाद में जाके पता चला जब मुझे बहुत ज्यादा मार पड़ने लगी. When my papa used to took me in his hand and throw on walls to me, and that all experiences was very limitless. So end of that all this process, I was so much freedom and decided to left my home and to live my life according to me, not to left my family, not to left my mom or my father or my sister, but for me, but for myself. And again, at that time, I didn't have that understanding that I need to work for my community, but yes, I need to live for me. So I left my home, and after when I left my home, then I come to know कि नहीं, घर तो बेहतर ही था, क्योंकि वो लोग बोलते थे मेरी भलाई के लिए, बोलते थे बाहर तो दुनिया कुछ और ही है. But the situation was that I was not able to go back home because my papa disowned me. He told me that there is no place at our home for you. So I was helpless, and so I started to work with some CPO who were working for LGBTQ only, but I didn't complete my 18 at that time. So they asked me to work as a volunteer. They was paying me out of the box, not in account, but in cash they were paying me because for livelihood. So, but that money was not sufficient because when I left my home, I was in 12th. So I was very much thankful for my education because I was very much aware that without education there is nothing. No one is there to ask you. Or other than that, there are many options also, but which was not okay to me. We'll discuss further on that. But at that moment, I was so much blank how to go further. So one of my friends told me, if you want to study, you need to earn money. And right now you don't have any option instead of if you go for sex work. He make me understand कि नहीं, तेरी अभी उम्र कम है तो you can earn more. मतलब वो इतना भरा भूसा मेरे दिमाग के अंदर कि मतलब मेरे को वो बहुत अच्छा लगा. मतलब it was like shining. तो हाँ, इतना पैसा है, ओके, आई एम ओके. वो होने के बावजूद कि नहीं, अंदर से कहीं पर था कि no, this is not okay, but still if I want to do something in my life, I need to go for this. And I switched to sex work for some time. And then I started my education by working with CBO, and during that I started working with call center also. But then again, in first standard, I didn't score that percentage to get admission in medical college because I was very old to become a doctor, but that was my dream, which never come to true. So वो डॉक्टर बनना कभी पॉसिबल नहीं हुआ, लेकिन नेक्स्ट डॉक्टर देयर वाज वहां पे तब वो दिमाग में चलता कि डॉक्टर नहीं बन सकते तो इंजीनियर बनेंगे. So I switched to engineering. Again, that was not my job. It was that then लोगों की तरफ से ही आया हुआ था कि डॉक्टर नहीं बन सकते ना, तो switch to engineering. So I switched to engineering, and again I chose best one कि engineering में best क्या है. So it was told कि aeronautics is the best part to study. So I switched to aeronautical engineering. Again, there was a problem, financial crisis. I switched for bank loan. My mother and my sister assist me in that. But they offer me only 50% of that my education fees. After 2 years, I need to left it out because I was not able to pay my fees. So I left that also. again I started to work with CPO 1 year. With 1 year gap, I started my education for graduation, because 2 years was only diploma, and they didn't give me certificate also, because I didn't complete my degree. So I switched to graduation. I completed my master's, not master's, graduation in business administration in distance study, because कमाना जरूरी था, रेगुलर जाना पॉसिबल नहीं था, जॉब करना जरूरी था, तभी वो पढ़ाई हो पा सकती थी. तो distance study I continued. I completed my graduation. Again 1 year gap to earn more for post graduation. लेकिन जब पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन के लिए जाना हुआ तो ड्यूरिंग मतलब ऑल दिस टेन्योर आई वर्क फॉर माय कम्युनिटी ओनली. वो मुझे पता चला जो मैंने सहा है वो मेरी कम्युनिटी को नहीं सहना चाहिए, तो मैंने वही जो मेरा हमेशा कि नहीं, मेरी कम्युनिटी को ये नहीं करना चाहिए, उनको वो सब कुछ मिलना चाहिए जो मुझे नहीं मिला. तो वो इनिशियल स्टेज पर ही उनको पता चले कि व्हाट दे आर गोइंग टू फेस, how they were going to face, and what are the solutions for that. So I always been with them कि नहीं ये हो सकता, ये नहीं हो सकता, and this duration told me that I need to work in this field only. So for post graduation I switched masters in social work, but when I applied for entrance exam, that was very shocking for me, because when we are going for social science, a faculty of social work and dean of that, मतलब they need to be so sensitized towards society. He refused me to give admission due to my sexuality, and that was really shocking. मतलब he is the person who need to talk in society for right to education for everyone, and he is asking me what is the use for you. You are working for CPO, you are in a nice position, you are on managerial position, so you can work for your community. Why you are coming here? I fought for that. It was long journey. Again 1 year gap was there, because I complained to ABVP, NSCY, they also assist me out, but it took 1 year to fight, and again I need to take admission on sponsorship. He didn't give me admission now. So इतना सब कुछ होता है, मतलब जैसे कि मतलब I was working for community, I was advocating for my community. In spite of that, if I'm facing such stereotypical person, मतलब ऐसे लोग जो उस ओहदे पर बैठे हैं जिनको ये करना ही नहीं चाहिए, if they are doing so, what could we expect from other? वो ऐसा था.
Absolutely.
तो वो होने के बाद वो पता चला कि नहीं, there is so much to do in future for my community. मैंने अब तक जो कुछ भी किया, that is nothing. And again that started my journey from, I can say, from one. So then again I completed my graduation. I switched to and after completion my education, लोगों ने ये भी बोलना शुरू किया कि अच्छा तूने भले नहीं एडमिशन पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन पूरा किया है, लेकिन तू तो कम्युनिटी बेस्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ही काम कर रहा है, और तू क्योंकि उस कम्युनिटी से इसीलिए तू मैनेजरियल पोस्ट पर है, नहीं कि तूने पढ़ाई की है. एंड अगेन दैट स्टीरियोटाइप कि मतलब मैं ये हूँ इसीलिए मैं हूँ, नहीं यार, मैं वही ह्यूमन बीइंग हूँ जो आप हो. तो वो वापस मुझे अपने आप में वो कहते हैं ना, टर्निंग प्रोसेस फॉर मी. तो अगेन कि नहीं, अब मुझे कुछ बाहर निकल के करना होगा. तो आई स्विच टू अनदर एनजीओ which was working for sex workers. Again that was subject to me for working, because I was into sex work before. So I thought I need to work for sex workers also. After that journey turns into that what Uzma told. I worked for Gujarat State Legal Society also, Technical Support Unit, Public Foundation Health of India, Chaitna, and now I'm working at Institute of Social Sciences. और ये सारा जो जर्नी था वर्क का, तो ऐसा नहीं था कि मतलब सब लोगों ने वेलकम ही किया. कुछ लोगों को वेलकम करने की मजबूरी भी थी, और कुछ लोगों ने ना चाहते हुए भी वेलकम करने के बाद जो अपना रूप था वो दिखाया. तो I fought with them all because I was thinking that कि नहीं, ये मेरा काम इसलिए है क्योंकि I am advocating for my community in this spaces. कि नहीं, we can also work as a human being, not because of we are belong to LGBTQI community, we can't work this way. तो वो प्रूफ करना बहुत जरूरी हो गया था और स्टेप बाय स्टेप आई एम रियली वेरी हैप्पी कि बहुत से लोग ऐसे मिले कि जिन्होंने हेल्प भी की और इतने अच्छे से हेल्प की। तो आई कैन टॉक अबाउट टेंडेंस टू सोर्सेस क्योंकि मेरा जो पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन का पूरा टेन्योर था उसमें आई वाज सो मच मेंटली डिस्टर्ब व्हाट नमिता टोल्ड आल्सो कि मेंटल स्ट्रेस को हम लोग जानते ही नहीं। तो उस वक्त आई वाज आल्सो नॉट अवेयर अबाउट मेंटल स्ट्रेस बट one of my colleague right now, my boss, she's my boss but friend to me more. So उन्होंने मुझे समझाया कि नहीं कुछ भी हो, you need to go on your way according to you. लोग क्या सोचते हैं ना उसमें सोच तू बैठेगा तो तू कुछ नहीं कर पाएगा, तो go ahead. And I went ahead और वो सब कुछ हुआ जो ना चाहते हुए भी हुआ और चाहते हुए भी हुआ। तो लेकिन ये जर्नी पूरा था जहां पर अप्स एंड डाउन हमेशा रहे कि लोगों ने एक्सेप्ट भी थोड़ा बहुत किया, पूरा तरीके से तो किसने नहीं किया, यस, लेकिन थोड़ा बहुत किया और कुछ लोगों ने धुतकारी दिया। लेकिन धुतकारी वाले जो लोग हैं उनके साथ जो काम करने का मौका मिला, एंड नाउ दे आर टेलिंग मी, एंड नॉट टेलिंग मी ओनली बट टेलिंग टू देमसेल्व्स, दैट इज द ग्रेट थिंग कि नहीं दे रहे रॉन्ग। एंड वो मेरी कामयाबी रही कि मैं उन लोगों को समझा पाने में कामयाब।
That's commendable, Karthik. We'll come back. In fact, I'm receiving a lot of messages on Facebook as well. And Visamo, from Visamo, they're saying that thank you, Karthik, for sharing this dark truth about your life. It's not easy. It takes guts. But if it's making you a better person, if it's coming out and making others better, I think it's commendable and really appreciate your coming and sharing. And of course, there's a lot more things that people are writing, but we'll come back to that in a bit. I really appreciate your presence here. Thank you so much, Karthik. So after this, really, I'm a little shaken also by your thoughts and by the reactions of people around you and how your life has been. I'd like to move on further and now call our next panelist, Major A.S. Ravikiran, an Indian Armed Force veteran with over 25 years of work experience in various strategic roles in the Indian Army and the corporate sector. He is currently located in Seattle and on work assignment, and he likes to spend his leisure time studying the geopolitical developments and their global impacts. So he will be talking about stereotypes at the workplace in a multicultural environment. So Ravi, welcome, and we look forward to your views and your talk today.
Thank you, Isma. Thank you for having me on. So I'll keep it short and crisp. And जो भी मैं बोलने वाला हूँ, it is ये एक मेरा observation है. I have been here in US for about 5 years now. And जब से मैं आया हूँ, इसको मैं काफी नजदीक से देख रहा हूँ. And US मेरा पहला ऑफशोर असाइनमेंट नहीं है. इससे पहले मैं एक बार पहले भी बाहर जा चुका था. So I had a fair idea of what an expat uh, experiences when I came here to US. So amongst so many things that are seeped into a standard frame of mind, which you can call as societal habits or expectations, right? Unlike what we hear other panelists talk, which is generic. What I'm going to say is more generic. So we'll have to take it at the face value, right? What I find is when people come here from India, especially India, and a lot of Southeast Asian nations, right? ये एक माइंडसेट बना करके एक दिमाग में एक एक्सपेक्टेशन सा होता है इनके यहाँ पे कुछ अचीव कर गए हैं जिंदगी में. इट्स अ गुड थिंग, राइट? नाउ ये एक कॉज बन जाता है. इट बिकम्स अ रीजन दैट वंस दे कम हियर they behave in accordance to that. So it's a driving force first gen immigration possibly, but it sets up a stereotype. You मेहनत बहुत करता है, बहुत सही भी बात है. What it sets up as a stereotype is, then that is what is expected, not just of that individual, but of the whole community, right? So जो काम 10 दिन का होता हो logically by process structure के हिसाब से, वो 6 दिन के अंदर खत्म हो जाता है, कर देती है दुनिया, right? Now what that sets up is, it's a good stereotype to have. It's a USP. Business के लिए बहुत अच्छा है. But then that stereotype starts impacting specific people, specific individuals negatively, in the sense, after a particular amount of time, these guys don't even get to know what they are losing because of committing. 10 दिन का काम अगर 6 दिन 7 दिन में हो रहा है, तो बाकी 3 दिन कहाँ से आ गए? Either it is lack of quality, or it is lack of somebody's sacrifice of personal time, right? Now, that sacrifice of personal time is to a large extent, which ends up then eating into or becoming one's personality. So one stops understanding that they have life outside of working this 9-hour shifts.
True, true, true.
Now that gets impact. I mean, that becomes an expectation. While as a immigrant, it's great to have people trying to do that. But for an employer, for a customer, it doesn't. It comes across as willingly doing something. Correct. I want to do it. Now, this could be behaviorally. So when you see people having expectations on you, it's a gradient. I'll agree that हर बंदा एक जैसा नहीं होता, and it's not limited to any skin color. I wouldn't put that to be attributing. The driving one is I wanting to do something, and there is a gradient. I don't agree. There somebody is absolutely willing to agree. So it's a gradient of expectation, but surely as a community, we are seen like that. That's something that comes out. So we need to work on that. And the second one that's very stark in its, and I think it's better the sooner we get over with it, the better it is. There is this, either call it understanding, or if you will, a misunderstanding, that हमें, we are coming into a country as expats for work because they don't have the right quality. They can't finish or complete the job. वो गलत है. जहां 10 लोगों का काम है और 4 बंदे अवेलेबल हैं, तो 6 बंदे एक्स्ट्रा चाहिए, तो बाहर से बुलाए जाते हैं. हाँ, ये जो 4 या 5 बंदे लोकली अवेलेबल हैं, इनका टैलेंट स्प्रेड is also spread between very good to average, like we have in our own countries, right? So while it is great to have pride of getting selected for an assignment, which is possibly slightly more prestigious, that also I'll debate. But yeah, workforce and as labor or as support, you come in somewhere. But carrying that in the mindset is one of the mindsets. I mean, when you talk about uh, cultural intersections of different communities, it kind of becomes a stereotype, because then you start wearing those lenses of trying to see different communities that as an entire community they can't do something, or as an entire community they're good with something, right? So that's something completely misplaced. There are some fantastic people that I've seen here, which are, I mean, neck, shoulder, and head above uh, the content that we get to see outside. I've been in the business of dealing with talent and its spread for quite some time, and it's appalling to see. I mean, so you hear, euphemisms are there, simple phrases. Sir, काम दो, मैं कुछ भी कर लूंगा. अरे कुछ भी करना होता तो मेरे पास नहीं आते ना भाई. जहां मिलता आप कर लेते, right? So that spread. So these are the two things that come out very strongly, amongst a lot of others, which of course, which are, but at workplace, this create. Yeah. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes. So very relevant. And in fact, people don't think too much about that. But the people who are seeing and facing it, I think it comes into their finally it becomes an irritant at times as well. That why just because
True.
I'm an
Mhm,
expat, you expect me or not expect me to do such jobs. And some very
mhm.
good points that you pointed out. And of course, the mindset, as you said, becomes the stereotype for future, and it has to
That's right.
be pointed out and it has to be addressed. Thank you so much, and
Mhm,
uh, definitely something to think about. And now, of course, we'll discuss a bit more later once we come to the questions. And now,
mhm.
Vasudha, um, she is a graduate from the prestigious Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai. Vasudha works as a mental health professional for the last 10 years now. And but before that, she worked on issues of sexual abuse, gender biased violence, gender discrimination. And she wishes for a world where kindness, freedom of expression, and respect is a norm, and where people don't have to hide their identities for whatever reason. She has a vast experience as a mental health professional, but today she will be speaking on parenting a boy and unschooling, what it is not, and what are the rampant stereotypes associated with both aspects. So, welcome, Vasudha. Looking forward to your views.
It's such a large topic. I don't think I
I
can
know.
cover everything, but I would like to touch upon quickly on a few things. Like, I feel like just the stereotype around parenting per se to begin with is like a parent is responsible for everything and anything that a child will turn into, that in itself is such a, like, when I say stereotype, it's like what is expected out of you, what are the preconceived notions and some myths and misconceptions, which then kind of force us to fit into that role. And all the time we are judging ourselves if we are fitting into what is expected out of us or not, and that in itself, while I was listening to all three other speakers, it's like the mental and emotional health is such a thing that automatically gets affected because of this whole stereotyping. And that in itself, I think we can talk three more panel discussions just on that. But so that, to begin with, the stereotypes around parenting, that it is your role and everything that your child turns out is either your fault or your doing, kind of a thing. And to break out of that, it took me a long time, but over time I have given myself the permission to really mess it up, given the thing, based on the, as a mental health professional, that despite all the kinds of parenting environment and all kinds of societal expectations thrown at you, over time we all have a choice to then set our own course, set our own path, and move away from how we were raised. So we can always go beyond our raising. It is challenging, it's not easy, but we can. So that stress of everything I do and not do every day is going to harm or blossom my child is the stress I
Yeah.
firstly kind of took away from my thing. It's not every day I succeed, but I'm saying largely. Then the whole stereotyping about how raising children per se is what role of a mother and what is the role of a father in itself is such a stereotypical thing that we then automatically fall in line. Emotional needs, nutrition, schooling, homework, social life and friendship, everything is a mother's job. Father's job largely is put bread on the table, in that very typical cliche phrase that we use, or take care of the financial needs, the future is secure, save money and all of that, very, which is in itself is such a myth. Because I know Navneeta here, I know myself, I know you. In this panel discussion only, we are like, we all work, we all earn, and we all contribute, right? And even if we don't earn, my thing is that the role, how it's been interesting to challenge those stereotypes sometimes succeed, sometimes find myself falling into those stereotypes unknowingly. And that it's such a constant thing to be present when you are falling into that stereotype of that okay, this is your role as a mother, and how much I have judged myself as not a good mother, because as such, as if there is some rule book which says this is what a mother must be or should look like and should do, and if you're not doing, you're not a good mother, and this is a father's job. And constantly, so that in itself, and I'm glad that between me and my husband, through conversations, dialogues, and angry fights and cold wars and heated conversations, we have somehow always been in that flow where we will see, okay, are we then falling in line, and can we do it? Can we give ourselves the permission to do it differently, where it suits us, three of us as a family, it suits us, it's good for our own mental and emotional health, where we have our own freedom of expression and we are being kind to each other, despite all the labels and expectations and preconceived notions about parenting. Then the third way of stereotyping, which largely I have challenged and experienced a lot, is how to raise a boy. As if, raising a boy is very commonly expected to be very different from raising a girl. Some of the things I will not say because Karthik has already addressed it, and just building on what he shared and building on what Navnika shared about the whole mental health aspect of it, is that, like my son, he's 13 now, but when he was going to school, last 4 years, I took him out of school, and I'll come to that. But while he was going to school, since the age of 1, whether you go buy clothes, buy toys, buy books, kind of cartoons he watches, TV he watches, everything is, this is for girls, this is for boys. So constantly I had to question myself that, am I then, because of my own feminist thinking or need not to cater to the gender stereotyping, am I then that constant thing that when is it his choice and something that's coming to him naturally, and when I am in somewhere invested as a feminist mother, trying to totally question it and almost force him to do the opposite of what he's expected by the society to do as a boy. And that was quite a maddening kind of phase of dilemma, turmoil, and constant questioning and everything. But like for example, I'll tell you, when he had this whole phase where he loved Dora the Explorer, and he wanted a birthday cake of Dora the Explorer instead of Superman and Spider-Man, or even as little as, you go to buy a underwear for boys and everything is Superman and He-Man and this man and that man, but my child wants some cute little cartoon figures which are not considered to be boyish. Or even books, we have fairy tales for boys, fairy tales for girls. Even sometimes I feel even feminist literature, so to speak, which is supposed to question the stereotypes, is this rebel girls and rebel boys. As if, if it's a girl needs to know about all the famous women, and boys need to know all about the famous men who questioned authority, questioned the tide, went against the tide. My thing is, why not see them just as children, give them the freedom and let them shape their personality, and give the space to let their personality flower as they, in their own space, at their own pace, where nothing is right and wrong and nothing is expected and not expected or desirable or not. Like I remember even when he was 3 months old, if I ever, whenever I will give him so-called girlish clothes to wear, automatically my friends who've done psychology and social work with me would admonish me and say, Vasudha, beware, because he'll turn gay if you at the age of 3 months, you're dressing him into a... So I would like, firstly, I have no problem if my child turns gay. Secondly, there is no connection between clothes and what he reads and how he talks and what he eats and how he walks and what he plays with and how he reacts to situations. So if he's crying and he's not jumping, like a lot of people would tell me that he's such a not a typical boy, you're so lucky because he's not jumping and breaking things around and being violent and aggressive. I thought it was so disrespectful of boy community that all boys are supposedly aggressive and violent and unkind and brash and mean, and that's a good quality to prove you're a boy enough. And if he's not doing it, then he's not a boy enough and not you. It's something wrong and something to be commented upon in your parenting style, and there's something deficient in him because he's not then behaving or reacting like a boy. Like even like he would, if he would say, mama, I like to play with girls because they are nicer and kinder, and these boys in school, they only want to play these sports which involved getting hit or getting hurt. And he was like, I don't like games where you're physically being hurt, like cricket and football or volleyball and those kind of things. And I was like, constantly questioned by people around me that then you're making him too soft, too weak, too, sometimes they'll say girlish, but mostly they'll say very soft and very this thing, and we are not saying because of this, we are saying because muscularly he has to build
And
up.
as the soft is bad.
Soft is obviously bad and weak and not okay. And boys need to, strengthen their muscles and be able to beat the hell out of others. Otherwise, they're not strong, right? So those kind of things. And then the whole stereotyping within the parenting paradigm was that education is important. Education equals to schooling. So if you are taking your child out of the whole organized, researched, firmly established norm where schooling is the only answer and the only way a child can learn and grow and make something out of his or her life is schooling. So if you are unschooling, which means you are challenging everything that a school is supposed to be, and where basically unschooling is often interchangeably used with homeschooling. And the big difference is that homeschooling is schooling from home, but you're not questioning the thing that a particular curriculum, a few subjects must be taught and must be learnt by certain age appropriate. This you should know by this age. If you don't know, then you're lagging behind and you're not fitting in and you're not fine, and therefore there's a problem in you, or labels like slow learner. So a lot of people who have indirectly or directly asked me, is it like he's slow learner or he's had some issues, problems because of which you took him out of school, as if in a norm. So it's not so basically in all our experiences, if you see, anytime you're moving away from any norm which is established, whether it's sexuality, gender, or parenting or schooling, your question and some problem has to be there, which has to be solved. And there is some problem in you which you need to correct so that you can fit in. So that whole stress to fit in is something which in my own 13 years of parenting, I have tried to address, challenge, and look within, and not tried as much as I can to not give in to the, the pressure and the luring of being fitting in and being normal. And now I was like, I told my child, son, that it's okay, I'll be very happy. Don't ever feel scared or upset or hurt if anybody calls you abnormal. Abnormal only means you're not fitting into what is considered normal by the majority of systems. So please be abnormal, please be crazy, please be whatever label. Don't take it to your heart. Know that this label and this thing is coming from a very narrow-minded, one blinkers on kind of
Yes.
thinking, and you have your own space where you explore how you want to be and what you want to be, you know.
So true, so true. In fact, Vasudha, in fact, all our panelists, now people are wanting more and more such discussions, of course, and today may not end very soon if because it's opening up so many doors and so many thoughts, and people are really into that frame of mind. So Madhumita Sarkar on Facebook is writing fantastic, the discussion on stereotypes, so much more to learn. Can we have more on just this? So it's really going good, but of course, we have to limit ourselves on time. And I'd like to address some very quick questions to all of you. I think we may have some more minutes on that. So, Vasudha, while you were on the topic, some more about your mother-son relationship, if you can elaborate on.
So,
So, like a stereotype surrounding a mother-son
one
relationship.
stereotype which now, because he's last 2 years he's approaching a teenage, just 1 week back turned a teenager. The main thing I feel is like how it's like, if anything to do with sexuality, growing up, changes in body is considered a father son job or a mother daughter job. So if you have to talk about periods or even child sexual abuse when he was just 1.5, 2, and I started talking to him about his body, right to his body, right to say no, child sexual abuse, it was like a father should do it with a son and a mother should do it with a daughter, which we challenge. And now I was like, whatever he feels comfortable, whoever he has a connect at a given point, and then rope in the other parent and say that you should know that both of us are equipped to handle any
Yes.
question you have, any discomfort, and we are here to address. And we may not know the answer always, but it's our job. We will find it out and give you the question answer till you are comfortable
Yes.
and okay with it. And you should not feel that this is not mama's. So even things like, if initially, like as a growing up boy, if there's some
Same with
things
me.
happening in your body, you are like, okay, now I'm too old to
To
show my
discuss it,
body to
yeah.
or discuss it with and I was like, no, I know nobody is too old with your parents. There is no distinction between mother and father, and let's keep it in that, and
Absolutely, absolutely.
do it with that. And yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Because so these are very relevant points that the viewers would also agree to. And Prabha Shukla is writing, we would love to have a version 2 diving deep into those topics. So I'm sure Sudeshna is listening, and she she needs to do something about that. Thank you, Vasudha. So coming to another question. So Navnita, you were talking about, the mental health and the support that we might seek. So how can we normalize the idea of seeking this mental health support for ourselves and for our loved ones?
Yep, that's a great question, Uzma. And just listening to Karthik, Vasu, and Ravi, I was just jotting it down. One, I would say that you know uh, creating awareness. It may sound very simple, but we need to use all possible media to talk about it, and that awareness needs to be followed with some critical reflections. Like if we are seeing something in a serial or a film, being able to sit down while having your dinner and talk about what was it that didn't sound all right, why, being able to unpack it, and awareness and education and reflection at every space, at home, in playgrounds, in schools, in workplaces. And Ravi, you've talked about it, and I have strong opinions about all of what you said, and completely agree. The second one is, I've already talked about it, having a positive mental health language. I cannot overemphasize, language is so critical. It defines how we are perceiving, it defines the actions we choose to do or not do. And finally is leading by example. And I loved your story, Karthik. So shukriya dost uske liye. Leading by example, and in the mental health context and normalizing it. Like if I am suffering from, say, going through a phase of, say, depression, and it's continued, right? And I know it is not okay. I am going to my GP and talking about it, and I'm telling Naifa, my 8-year-old, that this is what it is, and the doctor has prescribed this. So going, seeking help, seeking medical help, going about it, and talking about it with pride that yes, I have a problem. Absolutely. So these three would be my go-to.
Yes. So again, communicating and open communication, all that. So people are writing on Facebook that language is so important, and being open and communicative amongst your family and friends and sharing problems is so important. Thank you so much. And Karthik, do you think कि आजकल जो films and media है, are they contributing positively or they are making the problems worse?
It's both way because most of the movies are like they are making fun of these identities, because you can see Dostana, you can see many of them, they are making fun of these identities. Very few, one or two films are there. One of that is Shubham Chada Sauda. They shoot very well, but again they also make some comedy of their situation, but at least they try to show some better scenario than other movies which which shown these identities very openly. But media, means in movies, no. But media is working on this, because if we talk about visual and the print media, they are working well for this to open up this community problems, to advocating for them.
Forward.
And again, at least they are giving, मतलब कहते हैं ना कि वो filters गिराना, कि वो लोगों के filters तो गिरा रहे, सोचने पे मजबूर जरूर कर रहे हैं कि हाँ, ये community exist कर रही है, ये सही है या गलत है. वो सोचने पे भी अगर मजबूर कर रहे हैं ना, तो कुछ ना कुछ किया ही. पहले जब लोग सोचते हैं, they are not ready to hear also, or I can say they don't know also. So at least people are letting know, there is such type of identities. There is another scenario they are accepting or not accepting. But yes, at least now awareness is there. Yes.
Yes, that's so true. And of course, it has to keep on being used. The media and exposure has to be on, so that people will talk more about it. Similar to these sessions being held more often, and so that और लोग आगे आए.
Even many social apps also supporting in this. Even Facebook is there, Tinder is there, who are supporting. Their CSR units also supporting to this community organization. So media is coming forward, yes. But movies,
no. Long way to go. So finally, I have one question for Ravi Kiran, because our children in Visamo Kids Foundation, we have career guidance sessions for them often. And so what key messages could you give, like you being an in the services, your experience of this, how should Visamo maybe help to train or to guide them, and also to address stereotypes in the profession as well? So to be prepared, more prepared to address such stereotypes as well.
See, okay. The simple answer is, at an individual level, every individual who is interested, because one, joining the armed forces is voluntary, right? Two, one should not be over enthusiastic about the glamour that they see. The glamour that you see on screen, or what you hear, or what you visualize with respect to uniform, the hard work that goes behind that is many times more. So one needs to have a clear mind in terms of the choice and the option one makes there. The second part is in terms of preparation as a student, as a child, a healthy mind, a healthy body, and a healthy spirit, and is a mandatory requirement. you cannot survive the toughness or the cruelty of the environments that you will, if not anything else, just the sheer environment or the weather itself, right? It's tough. Um, uh, so that's two. Three is from individual personality perspective. The ask is very simple. Um, I'm looking. So I would suggest, or I mean, that's the ask actually, is what you think, what you speak, what you write, and what you do. It has to be in sync. So
Right.
essentially, personality should not be split. This is the requirement. And coming in terms of what Visamo can do to help or the stereotypes therein, it's counterintuitive to say the least, but um, of all my 25 years and that I have seen, that I have experienced outside, armed forces is the least from a standpoint where you see um, a lot of stereotypes which do not, which are debilitating to say the least. There are a lot of conversations outside, but decisions towards that are more grounded in favor of why it is not being done than why it is being done, which is not obvious on the face value.
Right.
We often hear about such. So from that standpoint, it's a great career to be in. Visamo as an organization can start ensuring that kids are given that opportunity to be able to speak up their mind and act upon it. Right?
Right, right, right. And I'm sure you are always there for any guidance
Uh,
that
yeah, sure.
that we might need in future as
Of
well.
course, I'm committed to Visamo from that standpoint
That's so
and
good
much
to
more.
know.
It's an excellent initiative by an organization.
Thank you so much. So, after listening to all of you, it's very apparent that stereotypes aren't just limited to the broad areas of gender, caste, sex, etc., but they're also very strong between intersecting identities too. So, many of these stereotypes are contradictory and create confusion on the minds of young people, and we need to start questioning the beliefs we hold about each other and about ourselves, not to try, as Vasudha said, force fit various identities into the framework of stereotypes. So at the Visamo Kids Foundation too, it is a commitment and to overcome these stereotypes and teach the students to stand up to their own. So today's youth, the more they are engaged and in a self-learning process to start undoing the negative images they see and believe about themselves. We must explore where these beliefs come from and start questioning the validity of the source and then work to rebuild our identities with positive and empowering self-images. And with that, I wish to thank all of you, and for contributing so well to this discussion. And I'm sure that the positive seeds have been sown, and that we get an opportunity to address this, as has been a major demand now in the as per the Facebook comments that are coming in. And now I also wish to thank Visamo Kids Foundation for creating this forum, for so many healthy discussions to take place, for building awareness and to give a voice to a number of issues. So have a pleasant weekend, all of you. Thank you so much and really appreciate your presence here. Good
Thank you
night.
so much
Thank
to you too for
Thank
being
you.
such an awesome moderator.
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Really
very much.
appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye-bye. Bye-bye.